We have two tools covered. Next up, we have fishing. In other words, we have a fishing minigame that can be started if the player uses the fishing rod next to water. Then we are starting a minigame, and later on, this will give a fish resource. But that we don't care about so much at the moment. In fact, what I care about currently is the movement itself, so that the player can only use the fishing rod if we are next to water, and then the player cannot move until we stop the fishing game. That's going to be the starting point. While we're doing all of this, I want to get rid of this blob. Let me select it really quick. Should be at the bottom here. And I want to disable the timer for the blobs, because that's going to be annoying. Auto start should be false while we are doing all of this. That way, I'm not going to get too distracted. Inside of the game, if I get to water like so, and I have the fishing rod selected, we should start a fishing minigame. And while that game is running, the player cannot move, and we have the fishing animation. A couple of things that we have to work on. For that, inside of the player, let me minimize all of the functions so we can go through it step by step. Number one, I have set another variable called fishing. This is a boolean that by default is false. However, inside of get input, we are currently checking what the current tool is, and we are checking for these two that we will work on later. Besides that, elif, I want to check if the current tool is equal to global.tools.fish. If that is the case, fishing should be true. Besides that, I want to await the animation tree.animation finished. So we wait for the animation to be done, and then we want to emit tool interact, the thing that we have done up here already. Although keep in mind, we don't want the position, we want to have the position that we have used, for example, down here, where the entire thing is offset by the direction the player is facing. That is quite important. We want to use it in here. That way we are connecting to the game scene. Let's try that one actually. And I'm fully aware that fishing being true at the moment doesn't do anything. That's going to come in a bit. First of all though, inside of game, when we are getting on-player tool interact, at the moment we have X and sort. Besides that, if tool is equal to global.tools.fish. For this if statement, I guess for now, we can simply print fish. So we know it's working. Let's try. I can get the fishing rod, use it, and we get fish. Now, the first thing that we have to check is if we are actually hitting water. If we don't, then the player shouldn't be allowed to fish in the first place. We have to check inside of the game for the layers if our position is inside of this water layer, for which we can get to layers and water layer. On there, we have get cell tile data. And then we need a coordinate. That we don't have at the moment. We only have a position. But the issue is that all of the water layer works on a grid. If I have TileMap selected, you can kind of see, let me go down a bit actually, to paint one water tile, we are going in increments of 16 pixels. That we have to account for. So if a position is, for example, here, we have to figure out the right grid position. This we want to do for a few other tools later on as well. So let me create a variable inside of the function outside of the if statement. I want to have a var grid coordinate. This needs to be a vector to integer. We still have x and y, but they are going to be integers, which is important for get cell tile data. This one wants to have a vector I. To get the x position, for example, we will need position.x and then divided by the tile size, which in our case is always going to be 16. Although to be a bit cleaner here, inside of global, we have a constant tile size, which we should rather use. Instead of 16, this should be global.tilesize. That way you know what's going on. The same thing we want to do for y. After that, Godot is still complaining because this operation and this operation is going to return a float, which we are then turning into an integer via the vector 2i. And Godot is warning us about the loss of precision. You can pass both of those as an argument into the int function, then Godot should be happy. Once we have that, we can use the grid coordinate inside of getCellTileData, and then we should get something. Let's actually print what is being returned. Once again, I want to have the fishing rod go next to water, use it here, and we get tile data. If I use the fishing rod somewhere here, we are getting object null, so basically nothing. All we have to do now is put all of this into an if statement. If this object exists, we are next to water, so do fish. That means inside of grass, this isn't going to work, but next to water, this should be working. And it is. Cool. That being said, I actually want to do the opposite. If we are not next to water, then I want the player to stop fishing. And this should happen after about half a second. You see in a second where this is going. But for now, I want to get tree, create a timer with 0.5, await the time out. After that, player.stop_fishing. Also, we don't have the player. This should rather be inside of objects, this player here. The basic logic is going to be that we are assuming the player can always fish, but if we don't hit a water tile, then we're going to stop fishing via this function, which doesn't exist at the moment, which means inside of the player, I want to have func_stop_fishing, which for now is simply going to print no fish. Let's test it. Inside of the game, I want to, on grass, start fishing, and we get no fish after half a second. That means we can still check if we're next to water or not. So now we can implement the actual logic inside of the player. Inside of getInput, we are checking if the player is using the fishing rod, and then we are emitting the signal. We are also playing the animation that happens inside of setAnimation. I guess the first thing that I want to work on is, once the player uses the fishing rod and we are next to water, we keep on playing the fishing animation continuously and stop the player from moving. For the animation, we will need to work with the animation tree just a bit more. I want to move the output node a bit further to the right and then add a blend to node, where we are blending the current animation and get the output. Besides that, I want to add a blend space 2D for the right fishing animation. Let's call it fishing blend space. In there, we're going to select the right fishing animation, which we're then blending into the main animation via the fish blend. So connect the two. Inside of this blend space 2D, we have to set all of the animations once again, which we already have inside of animation player. If you open this one, somewhere in there, we have fish left idle, we have fish right idle, and so on. These are the animations we want to play, and those are looping. We have done this a couple of times in the first part. Fundamentally, I want to create new points. On the right side, I have fish right idle. This should be in the mid right, the top right, and the bottom right. Fish right idle every single time. On the left side, we have pretty much the same thing, except fish left idle. Finally, we need the top part. This one is going to be fish down idle. Remember, once again, the y-axis is inverted. The positive value is up here, which means this is down. And finally, we need fish up idle. And then I want to clean up the entire thing so we get the right corners. That looks alright. I guess just to be clean, we can also get a default point in the center, which could be fish down idle. Not strictly necessary, because this point we should never be able to get to. But still, nice safeguard. Now that we have that, inside of set animation, we have to update another blend position. Animation 3.set. I want to get the fish blend space blend position. And make sure you don't confuse it with the fish blend amount. Fish blend space is where we get the right animation from the direction. Fish blend is where we are blending it with the animation. For this, we need a direction, so direction for the animation. That's all we have to do in here. Next up, we have to actually blend the animation in via this node. That should happen once the animation is done, which we are doing inside of onAnimationTree animation finished. I want to only set can move back to true if we are not currently fishing. If we are fishing, we are only moving again once the fishing minigame is done. If we are fishing, then I want to get the animation tree and then set the blend amount. Once again, I want to look for blend amount, and this time you do want to go for fish blend and blend amount, not blend position. This one should be 1. So now, if I use the fishing rod, I keep on playing the animation and I can't do anything else. Alright, with that, we can start fishing. At the moment, once we start using the fishing rod, we cannot get out of it anymore. That we have to fix first of all. First of all, for that, inside of game.gd, when we are doing all of this, we already know that the player shouldn't be able to fish. That we can work on inside of the player. In here, we have to do a couple of things. Most importantly, fishing should be false. On top of that, can move should be back to true. I want to get the animation tree and set the blend amount for fish blend back to 0. That way, after half a second of fishing on grass, we should go back to the default state, and that works. Let's try it again, and that also works. If I try this over water, it should not trigger, so now we keep on fishing. When we are fishing inside of physics process, I want to check some other input. So in there, elif fishing, then I want to get the fishing input. This one doesn't exist yet. We can put it right below get input, func, get fishing input. This one, first of all, is going to check if we want to move away from fishing. Which means if we are fishing and the player starts moving anywhere else, then we want to stop fishing. For that, we want to get the direction like we have done before. Input and get vector like we have seen inside of get input. In fact, we can copy the entire line. That way we know the player wants to move. If that is the case, if direction, then we want to stop fishing. Let's try that one. I have to go to the water, select the fishing rod. If I now press space, we have the fishing rod. If I start moving, we stop fishing. Although there should be a bit of a pause between them. You can see it right there. If I move while I do the fishing stuff, then we get a weird animation. That we can fix with another timer. Let's add it really quick. Timer, rename it to fish delay timer. The duration for this one, 1 second is fine, and this one should one-shot. We want to stop fishing if the player is moving, and if 1 second or the duration of this timer has elapsed since the start of that. That we can check with if direction and fish delay timer dot time left. If this value is 0, then we know the timer has finished, which we can check with not. That way, the 0 that's being returned here will be inverted, so we get true. But we do have to start the timer. That will happen inside of get input when we are starting to fish in here. Fishing is true, and I want to get the fish delay timer and start it. Let's try that one now. Once again, I want to get to the water, and this didn't really work. We have to do just a bit more. And I think the main issue is that we should only set the animation if the player can move. Now this should be working. I can use the fishing rod, walk away from it, and if I press any other directional button, they're going to be ignored as far as the animation is going. So now this is working much better. This covers the first part. Now we are stopping and playing the animation, and we can go away from that. Righty, the final part of the fish game is the actual fish game. This I want to keep inside of a separate scene, which is going to be a user interface. Fish game, and it should span the entire available space. You want to have this one selected. This I want to save right away inside of scenes and UI. We have the fish game. And just to get an idea of how this is going to be integrated, I'm going to add a color rectangle. That will cover the entire available space, and we can keep it white. We don't need the blob anymore. Next up, inside of the player, I want to add a control node to the player. This will be the fish game container. In there, we have the actual fish game. The only thing that this fish game container is going to do is to give a space to the fish game. The anchor preset should be center bottom. That way we are already here. I want to set a minimum size of 100 by 20 pixels. Then I can change the anchor preset to custom and add some padding at the bottom. Let's say 20 pixels, actually negative 20 pixels. That way we are on top of the player. With that, inside of the game, we can see the white box on top of the player. In there, we are going to have the fishing game. Although this shouldn't have the color rectangle, I want to add some other things in there. I want to have a 9-patch rectangle for the frame. Once again, this should cover the entire available space. For the texture, we can go to graphics. There we have UI, in which we have frame.png. Drag this one in there. Then you get something that looks, well, a bit weird inside of the game. This is going to be not great. To make it look nice, we have to add the patch margins, which are going to be, I believe, 4 on every side. That way all of this is going to look very small, but inside of the game, if I save the scene, this is going to look much more appropriate. For the center, I want to add a texture rectangle. This needs to come below the 9-patch rectangle. It's just for the background. The texture I want to add is going to be a gradient texture 1D. If I run the game with that, you can see what's happening. We get this. And this should only span the available space. Let's try this again. Already better, but not great. For the expand mode, we want to fit the available width, and then this should scale properly. And that looks much better. Although we do have the corners. That we can fix via layout. I want to go from full rectangle to custom. And then for anchor offsets, right is going to get -2 pixels. Top is going to get 2 pixels. Then we can look at the bottom. And you want to look at these corners. They should disappear, which they already kind of are. So this one should be all right. And this one, not quite there yet. So for the left side, we want to have 2 pixels. And for the bottom, this should be -2, just to have all of the sides. We are basically adding 2 pixels of padding around the entire thing. That way, inside of the game, it fits together quite well, but we do have to work on the colors. That we can do inside of the texture. I want to work on the gradient. On the left and the right side, I went with a color value of 316458. A bluish color. This I did as well on the right side, exactly the same value. And then in the middle, I have added a more greenish color, 00FA00. That way, inside of the game, we get something that looks kind of alright. You can fine-tune it a lot for the proper look, but I think this is good enough. The next thing that we have to add is the actual fish. So the idea of the game is that we have a fish in the middle and the fish goes left and right. If the player presses space while the fish is vaguely in the middle, then the player gets the fish. And that's pretty much the entirety of the game. To get that, I want to add another texture rectangle that is going to be perfectly in the center. To that, I want to add one of these fishes. You can pick one of them, doesn't really matter. I like silverfish the most. Let's add this one. Then you get a fish that you can see inside of the game, although this looks a bit weird. For the stretch mode, I want to keep. Then we have to make sure that we are back in the center. Inside of layout, you want to have the custom layout and remove these offsets. That way we should be perfectly in the center. And we are. Next attempt. Now the fish looks much better. This we now have to animate, for which I want to add a script to fish game. The defaults here are totally fine. The most important thing in here is func_ready, and then we are creating a tween. This one is going to move the fish. Get free and create tween. With this fish selected, we can target the anchor offsets and move it left and right. That way, we can go to the right side of the thing and to the left side of the thing. Since we know the size of the parent container from inside of the player, this fish container, we have to go left and right 100 pixels. So we can use a tween and then tween a property. Tween property. I want to target the fish sprite inside of fish game, texture rect2. Let's call this one the fish rectangle. This we want to target inside of the tween. Then I want to get offset_left. The right side is going to be 100, which we are reaching within 1 second. After we have done that, I want to go to -100, and then we have something. Let's try. Inside of the game, we are currently doing something weird. I think that's happening inside of the game because the starting offset is really far to the left. This should be 0. Next attempt. Now we're going to the right, and then a bit too far to the left. This should be -60 for the left side, and now we go right, and we go left. This we want to loop via tween and set loops. I can try this again, and now we're getting the fish moving left and right. To make this interactive inside of the player, for get fish input, I want to check if input is action just pressed with action, that's the spacebar. If that is the case, we want to get the fish game, the one from the scene tree, and then get fish. This function doesn't exist yet, so inside of fish game, we have to add get fish, func get fish to be specific. All that we want to check in here is if the fish is in the center of the rectangle. For that, fish rectangle dot offset left should be smaller than 40. That way, we're getting the right side. For the left side, unfortunately, we cannot do something like -40 is smaller than this value, is smaller than this. Godot doesn't support it. Either you add an AND statement and check if the offset left is greater than -40. That would be one approach. Or you check if the absolute value of offset left is smaller than 40, which I think is the more elegant approach. If that is the case, let's print get fish. Later on, once again, the player will get a resource, but that's going to be another tutorial. Finally, we have to make the fish game visible or invisible. That means inside of the player, once we start playing the game, inside of get input, when we are getting to this if statement. I want to get the fish game and show it. By default, it should be invisible, like so. Besides that, once we stop fishing down here, we want to hide it again. So fish game dot hide. Let's try all of this. I can go to the water, play the game. We're getting the fish game. And if I am in the center, we are getting a fish. Once that is the case, inside of fish game, we want to get the player and stop fishing, for which we can simply return true if that is the case. And we should also indicate that this function returns a Boolean. And if that is not the case, else we want to return false. After that, inside of the player, when we are working inside of getFishInput, we can check if this is the case. If it is, we want to stop fishing. That should be it. If I now once again try fishing, I can get a fish, and the game disappears. We can walk around again, and we have another part of the game.